Hi, this is the video for the ABC method from the adaptive thinking section. And this is chapter 6 from the book, and this starts on page 83. I also have some PDFs if you want to print out. Those can be easier to write on than in the book. And we'll go through an example and then I'll have you practice on your own. So the main idea for the ABC method is this broad idea that we can't always change what happens to us. We can't always change the events or circumstances in our lives or the situation, but we can change how we think about those events or situations. This is an idea from philosophy, and then some psychologists came up with a method for evaluating those beliefs to make them more adaptive or helpful. So the goal of this is to handle negative thoughts in a more adaptive way and to challenge some of those beliefs that might be making us feel worse about a situation. These can be particularly helpful for emotional overreactions. And what I mean by that is you might notice if you're thinking about something, really dwelling on it, if it's really making you feel bad for multiple days in a row or longer than you think you should be feeling that bad for. These are everyday things. These aren't, this isn't when you're feeling an overreaction to something really awful happening, but, something that happens at work. If you really notice that you're really dwelling on it for multiple days in a row, this method can be good to kind of identify if what you're thinking about the situation might be making you feel even worse. So the ABCs, let me define those for you. The A is the activating event, and that is the event or situation that brought up the emotional response. These are just the facts of what happened, the who, what, when, where. And then B, the beliefs, that's what you're thinking about the situation. Those are the thoughts, the words that run through your head, the images that you see, the attitudes about the event, and those are the B, that's the beliefs, and that's really what we're going to target. And C is the result, that's the consequence. That's the emotional response that result from the situation and then the beliefs that you have about the situation. The consequences are usually one word: mad, sad, frustrated, angry, just one thing. Okay, so I'm going to go through the A, B, and C. It's important to understand what each of those three things mean. And when you're actually doing this method, you start with the consequences, then you write about the activating event, and then you write about the beliefs. First, I think it's helpful to go through an example of what each of those three things mean. So let me read this for you. Mr. Caldera is nearing the end of his third period math instruction when he notices 3 students in the back texting and not paying attention. Mr. Caldera stops his instruction, charges to the back of the room, waves his finger at the students and shouts, "I am not going to tell you again. Put those away and start paying attention." He hovers over them for several more seconds before quickly turning and walking to the front of the room. The class notices Mr. Caldera is flushed and visibly shaky as he begins instruction again. Okay, let's think about the ABCs for this situation. So like I said, we start with the C, we start with the emotion. What is he feeling? So he wrote down furious, frustrated, defeated, and hopeless. That's the emotion that he's experiencing. The event is he's teaching third period math and delivering instruction, and he sees 3 students texting. Notice, this is just the facts. That's just what happened. There's no emotion words in here yet. And then the beliefs. What was he thinking about that situation with the 3 students texting that made him feel so mad, so frustrated, and so defeated? So these were the things that were running through his head. These are the most disrespectful students I've ever met. They don't care about anything but themselves. That was making him feel frustrated or furious. The second one, this happens every single day. Thinking that made him feel frustrated. And then I'm never going to get through to them. That made him feel defeated and hopeless. So you can kind of see how these beliefs really led to that intense emotional experience, rather than just the situation when he noticed 3 students in the back texting. So in order to evaluate some of these beliefs, there's a method for, you do the D and the E, and that's where you dispute and evaluate how you're feeling after disputing. And there are questions that you can use to dispute some of these thoughts. and then to evaluate if disputing them makes the intense emotion kind of go down. And so the questions for that, going through that process, are on page 107. So those are questions like, what's the proof? Are there other ways of thinking about it? What would I tell a close friend in that situation? What would an optimist think? Does it hurt me or help me to think this way? Is there any other evidence? So let's go back to our example. These were the beliefs that he was thinking that made him feel furious, frustrated, and defeated. So are there any other ways of thinking about this situation? Are there any other ways he could think? So to dispute the first thought that these are the most disrespectful students that he's ever met, he came up with, I can only be effective if I stay calm. I need to find another strategy. So that's another way of looking at the situation. For 2, feeling frustrated, this happens every single day. Is that accurate? Is there any other proof? So for disputing this, he said, this happens a lot, not every day. Some days are better than others. So not every single day, but some days. Reducing the intensity a little bit. And then 3, I'm never going to get through to them. That making him feel defeated and hopeless. Another way of thinking about it is, well, they want me to give up. Everyone gives up on them. So after going through this process and disputing some of those beliefs, we look at the effect. He might not feel furious now. Maybe he feels disappointed but less angry. And then thinking that it happens a lot but not every single day still makes him feel annoyed but not frustrated. And they want me to give up. Everyone gives up on them. That makes him feel more empowered than defeated. Again, this isn't looking at trying to make him go from feeling furious to all of a sudden feeling happy. This is just evaluating those thoughts, trying to make them more accurate, and then seeing if that has an effect of reducing the intensity of the emotion. By reducing that intensity of the emotion, the next time this situation happens where he sees students in the back texting, he might be more likely to handle it in a better way. Another thing that can be helpful for the ABC method is to notice with some of these beliefs if there are any common thinking traps. And the chapter in the book goes through some descriptions for a bunch of different common thinking traps. Some words to look out for are always and never, because those situations are, it's rare that something always happens, or rare that something never happens. So softening that language a little bit, this happens a lot, or making it more accurate, because those words can just be really strong, and if you're thinking that can make you feel worse about a situation. Must or should are also words that can have a strong moral intensity to them. I must do this, I should do this, I should have done that. If those words can be softened in our thoughts a little bit to, I would like it to be this way, or I would prefer it this, or I'm going to try to do this, that can maybe reduce some of the emotional intensity. Another one, awful, terrible, thinking something's awful or the absolute worst, that can also make you feel worse. So softening, like I would prefer it not be this way, or this is not how I'd like it, but I'm going to do my best to get through it. So read those descriptions in the book about different thinking traps. And if you notice those thinking traps come up in some of the beliefs that you're writing about, it can be easy to identify those and dispute against them or argue against them. Okay, to summarize the ABC method, try the method when you notice a strong emotional reaction. And write down, you start with the C, the consequence, what's the emotion, or what are the emotions, the activating event, and then the beliefs about that activating event that make you feel so strong. And then rate how strong you believe each one before and after. Then dispute each belief using some of the questions, and then evaluate your emotion afterwards. Do you still feel the same way? So give a practice example a try right now while this is fresh in your mind. Go through this method for something that happened recently, maybe in the past week, and see if you can write down the ABC and then dispute and then evaluate. So pause the video, do that right now. And then after you do that, come back and I'll talk about practice for this week. So set a goal to practice using the ABC method a few times during the week. Print out some of the handouts that I gave you so that you can have a worksheet that you can go through a couple of times. Really a few minutes, a few tries at this is really all it can take to see a difference. It's more important to be consistent, trying it a little bit at a time rather than doing a lot at one period of time. So give it a try, like an experiment, see if it works, see if it makes you feel a little differently about a situation, and then that might make it, the next time that situation happens, it might make it easier to think more effectively so that you can accomplish what you want to accomplish in that moment. All right, that's all I have for this week, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.